Hello and welcome to Fierce. This program celebrates the diversity of LGBTIQ identities and perspectives. Fierce is produced in Bundjalung country at 2NCR Lismore and can also be heard on podcast at fiercefm.podbean.com and in New Zealand on Fresh FM, as well as all over Australia through the Community Radio Network.
Fierce FM on Spotify and YouTube.
I want to honour the traditional owners of the lands where you are living. They took care of these lands for thousands and thousands of years and then shared this land with us at great cost to their own lives. I want to thank them for the care they have given and continue to give, to sit on the earth, listen and care for country. I also want to thank the fairies and crones who came before us in history to fight for our human right to love fiercely.
My name is Mark McLauchlan, also known as Jewel in the fairy realms. I am a pole dancer and a gymnastics coach, spiritual healer and a psychic, and I currently live in Apocalypse Melbourne, as I call it. I hope you enjoy this fabulous Fierce radio show.
We're so blessed to be in our homes with a bunch of fairies. In Victoria, we're talking to Mark McLauchlan, or better known as Jewel, as well as Unicorn. In Queensland, Alex Bartzis. And of course, Alex, you've just been to Berlin. I've seen some very funny Facebook and YouTube posts around gay men in Berlin wanting to get their old Berlin back, which was very sex positive.
So I wasn't actually there during the COVID period, but I do have friends who I'm in close contact with still and a lot of connection to the Berlin community. I also run the Better Mental Health and Queer Berlin page. I'm hearing that it is very difficult. Like all the clubs closed, people moved to Berlin to party and have sex. I did in 2017. I had a few very sage, very quiet years in Cairns as the health promotion officer at Quack. I think I only had sex once or twice in those years in Cairns. So I was ready to go to Berlin and party and have sex. And yeah, it was amazing. Oh my God, did I make up for it?
You didn't want to be a slut, you said.
Oh, that's interesting. I wasn't a slut. I wasn't told to not be a slut by management. Not that there's anything wrong with being a slut. But up there, you know, some people might up there think that. It's a very small community. Yeah, I wasn't a slut. In fact, I used to refer to myself quietly as the Virgin Queen. Like married to my job for the community or something.
Luckily, you had Berlin in between that time of being a virgin and now.
I think I had too much sex, actually, in Berlin over 2.5 years. I definitely came limping back to Queensland in June last year, financially and energetically and sexually exhausted. Anyway, I met Adam, my boyfriend, who's just over there lying in bed in our lovely place in Tamborine Mountain a few months after I came back. And we have a monogamous relationship, which is very surprising to me. I've really needed this sort of love and support and stability.
How lovely.
Yeah, it's been very regenerating, and yeah, we definitely have some very interesting, sexual interests that we're sort of showing each other.
Did you say he was showing you something?
He is. He's showing me his bottom.
Oh. Perhaps the national audience want to see this bottom.
Oh, would you like to show your bottom? Maybe. Just side on, maybe, for internet. There he is.
Oh, he's got a jock strap.
There you go. Move forward a bit. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
By the way, he is DJ Hectopascal. Facebook.com/DJ HECTOPASCAL. And yeah, he's really good.
And so how about you, Mark? How I like to call Melbourne, Melberlin. We're seeing lots of stuff on the news. The numbers are going down and then they went right up again.
I call it Apocalypse Melbourne right now. Like all of my work stopped in March. So all of the industries I work in have been completely shut down. So we had 3 months of stage 3 lockdown. And then we had 2.5 weeks of freedom. And it was so exciting. And the cafes opened up, gyms opened up, a lot of the shops. And then we went into stage 3 lockdown for like a week and a half, and now into stage 4 lockdown for another 6 weeks. And stage 4 is like, it's like there's nobody in the streets. Outdoor exercise areas are all closed. We have to wear a mask as soon as we step outside of our house. We're only allowed out an hour for exercise, and it's like one person per house is allowed out per day for groceries and stuff like that. It's really hard. It sucks.
Have you got friends that you know of that have caught the illness and have been unwell?
No, I haven't. I don't know anybody or work colleagues or clients or anything who's had anything at all, which has been nice. Hoping it stays like that.
There's lots of beautiful times to be had down in melberlin during the night.
Oh, those kinds. Yeah, well, especially not in the last 4.5 months. It was hard at first to try to not hook up and not have sex, and there probably shouldn't have. A few sneak arounds here and there were going on. I think just a lot of online porn, a lot of jerking off instead. But I mean, it's really hard when you're in a culture, like if you've grown up going to the park or the beach once, 2-3 times a week, or the sauna on the way home after work. It's really forcing a lot of changes. And for me, changes which I've been wanting to make for a long time. It is a struggle. Most of the apps that I'm on, I'm only on one now. 2 of them I've just gone completely. They were just perpetuating the casual sex and taking up hours of my time. But I'm on Scruff, and Scruff has been really, really, really quiet because nobody's hooking up, because everybody's scared and everybody's concentrating on their survival and their own life. The other thing that's hard is all of my blood family is up in Queensland, and I only have friends here who I love, but I haven't been seeing them very often, and now I can't see them at all. And I don't have a partner or kids to come home to have a hug or a debrief. I'm on my own.
Can you share with our listeners anything that you've been doing to take care of yourself and to help nurture yourself in this challenge?
I don't know if I've been succeeding or not. It's kind of in waves. I exercise a lot, and that helps me to work through my stuff. I knew I couldn't stop having casual sex, but I had to figure out a way how to transform it into ways which were more nurturing rather than continuing this no talking, no connection. Like I've been single for 10 years, and then Alex is like, oh, I met my boyfriend 3 months after I come home. And I was like, oh, how did that happen? Lucky you.
I'm very lucky, but I have waited 41 years really to have a meaningful relationship. So it's my first one. I have had 2 sort of 4-6 month ones over 10 years ago, and it was very unexpected. But
you said you've entered a monogamous relationship. Do you feel like sharing about why you've chosen that?
We met on, would you believe, September 11 last year through Facebook actually. Adam messaged me while I was in hospital, and as soon as I released, the next day we had coffee at the powerhouse, and basically, I haven't left since. Why I chose it, I guess with Adam, there's not really a choice. He believes in monogamous relationships, even though, historically I'm pagan, thought I was polygamous and whatever, and all of that. I thought, well, I haven't tried this before. Being a slut, while it was fun in Berlin and everything, and Sydney years ago and whatever, it is fun, but it's not sustainable, and it was very draining for me. So I thought, well, I'll give it a whirl. It works for us now. Not to say that it won't evolve into the future, and we're open to communicating about everything, and we do. But yeah, it's fine how it is at the moment.
Alex, is there a song from your life that I could play on the radio?
When I was working at Queensland AIDS Council, talk about crystal meth problems in Sydney in the late noughties. I've been very public about it, and I was interviewed on Late Line and that after the chemsex documentary came out in 2015.
Wow, okay.
It's called Courtney's Story. It's my story.
So I'm quite sure that we were the first group of gay men in Sydney or even Australia to indulge in chemsex, really. None of my other friends who I sort of mentioned crystal meth to knew what it was. To describe the very first time I used it, it was with those guys that owned that house and that dungeon after first meeting them at another house in Moore Park. and they injected me. There was this intense rush, and everything sort of went golden, and all the hairs on my head and neck and everywhere really stood on end, and it's just this deep, visceral, pleasurable feeling, very intense. It didn't become problematic in my view. I think it was problematic in some ways way back then in my early 20s, but I only used it every 3 months. I remember sometimes even a 6-month gap. And definitely didn't perform that well at work, in the following few days or week, but I did recover and it wasn't really problematic. So it was after I finished uni that I started hanging around with sort of gay clubbers like that, and they were smoking crystal meth, so I realised that people were buying these glass pipes and smoking it, and I actually thought it was a little bit of a rush, but it didn't feel at all like injecting it. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my god, they have no idea, and this is like such a waste of money. But that is actually where more problems developed. I think from smoking it was very social and sort of got in that pattern with a group of friends. And I think, actually used a lot more crystal meth in sort of one night smoking it than injecting it. Because you don't feel like it sort of hits the spot like injecting it. And so you just keep sort of smoking more and more and like wanting something to happen, and it doesn't feel that sort of satisfying. I never actually used it every day. At my worst, in 2008 or so, it was every weekend. Sometimes I would go for 2 weeks without using it, and it was, mostly a mixture of smoking and injecting. I just got to a point on a Sunday night or early Monday morning, and I didn't want to use anymore. It was just, nah. And then I would, eventually fall asleep, take Xanax or something, and fall asleep, and then, wake up whenever on the Tuesday or something, and I would not want to use more. I didn't have that urge at all. It sort of disgusted me, really. There wasn't sort of shame. It was just like, I was so tired. I was thinking, no, I just couldn't, had no desire to use it. After a big weekend, not so much on the Monday, weirdly, when I think it's sort of still in your system, but say Tuesday, Wednesday, even Thursday, it's just so hard to think clearly. You can't even, sometimes you can't think of words, you just can't think clearly at all. And it's not effective, and it takes a long time to do anything. It's like this deep, deep lack of energy, like you're just exhausted to the core, to the bone. And you actually physically don't have much energy, you feel really weak. But then people who don't understand or haven't been through that, they think the person is just being, difficult or lazy, and then they, can shame them or put them down, make them feel like they're not helpful or no good. And then that actually makes the deep psychological wound, like feelings of not good enough or unlovable, and just reinforces those feelings. That complex, the negative complex, can make the pain that they're trying to escape, however feebly through drug use, worse. People in that sort of situation need compassion, and they need people to tell them that, there isn't anything wrong with them, and that they are valuable and have worth, and to slowly, change those negative self-beliefs to positive ones. And then slowly over time, if that's reinforced enough, then people heal, and then they, feel the need to use less because there's not as much pain to escape. Actually, in 2009, I ended up in this house in Redfern, and I contracted HIV. And this is sort of in 2009 as well. I was at this job where I hoped it would really help me sort of get better and stuff, and like stability and money. And then they dismissed me. Again, the same old thing, rejection, and then feeling unsupported by anyone. And then I used more and more and more. It wasn't working much. In that situation, I think it's so hard to get help for yourself because you feel so bad about yourself and so low. I guess you don't think that you deserve help. And the first help I actually really got, I had a few sessions at the stimulant treatment program in Sydney, and a friend of mine organised that for me. It was a pilot program specifically around crystal meth, and he took me there dropped me at the front door, created the appointment, everything. And I think there is a lot of fear around group therapy, but really it is in those settings that you can taste compassion, which is the circuit breaker. I'm really happy, with what I've done and how my life is now. And I think it's a bit of an unusual story. I think I have a very good understanding of, what drives addiction of all sorts. And I think crystal meth is actually similar to, or the same as all other addictions: alcohol, opiates, benzodiazepines, even, non-substance addictions. And I think people are trying to not escape themselves or not face their shadow or their feelings, and it's like a distraction. It's like a band-aid that doesn't actually heal the deep sort of issues. So now that that's all been sort of removed from me, when I do come across crystal meth, I never seek it out. I might just have a little bit, like a puff, and that's it. It can be 12 hours later, and I don't feel the need to use any more or find any more or anything. The weird thing is, even now, even though I'm not afraid of it, I know now, it's still really bad for you, and you don't actually really feel that good on it, and I don't need to use it because I love myself now a lot more, and why would I want to do that to myself? It's hurt myself even a little bit, and that really is where I am now.
My name's Alexandros Bartzis. I am also known as Unicorn, living on beautiful Tamborine Mountain with my boyfriend Adam. I'm listening to Fierce FM, fabulous LGBTIQ across the country.
Fierce FM on Spotify and YouTube.
Things have changed. What do you see for the future? Do you see lockdown ending and things going back to normal anytime soon? Or do you think this is something we're going to be dealing with for years and years and years? Do you think we'll ever get back big parties?
The impact of COVID on the scene and partying and everything yet to be seen. The Tropical Fruits has been cancelled. Mardi Gras, no one knows yet. It's only 2 months really after Tropical Fruits, so it could be. It was starting to be affected by COVID this year. I was in Sydney for Mardi Gras with Adam. It had a weird energy. COVID was being reported, but people knew it was coming. But there's been some good things about lockdown. A party where everyone's crammed together and going off, and lots of sexy bodies and sweat and everything is amazing. But in supermarkets and in general and all of that, I've actually liked more social distancing and more awareness of personal space. In Queensland, in the Valley and on the Gold Coast, nightclubs have been open and the dance floor has been packed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not allowed to dance. No, it's not legal, but when COVID is eradicated from the community, I think the evidence is already there that people will just go back to normal. I would say it has been eradicated from Queensland in a similar way. It's at a great cost, with our border being closed. Wouldn't it be great for that to continue forever?
It's all quite unknown territory, and the only way we can have peace about all that is doing what we can to stay in the present moment.
If we find acceptance for how things are, it becomes easier in some way.
Exactly. People are really beginning to see the value of working on their inner world. They've got a lot of questions, of course, and we all need a lot of healing. So it challenged me to create Zoom classes. My spirit guides were very lovingly pushing me. And I got 22 students, and it was so amazing and humbling and beautiful. So I'm about to launch and start a new 6-week course on how to protect your energy, how to heal it, how to work through the chakras, prayers and intentions, and working with your healing spirit guide as well. As people's outer world shrinks more because of all the rules, is that people's inner worlds neglected for so long. So people's stuff is coming up for them to realize and to process, and we have to learn ways to work through it and transform it so that we can come out of all this different to how we started.
Mark, when you did pole dancing,
Yes.
It sounds like a very sexy time.
When you compete in pole dancing, you do amateur or semi-pro or pro level. So as you move up, obviously, I was a national team gymnast and an international circus performer. So when you get up to the higher levels of pole, it's beautiful. It's flexibility, it's strength, skill. But the thing about pole is that you can make it whatever style, whatever flow, whatever costume.
So that's fun and creative. And you used to work for Cirque du Soleil, so that would be following a script.
For those guys, yes, it was very controlled, very choreographed, very organized. And I was a group acrobat in large numbers of group acts. So as I moved into a soloist, whole other story and whole other stage presence.
Well, we're going to go to this song. What was it like that day? How were you feeling? Were you nervous? Were you excited?
Oh, of course. I was feeling like I was about to throw up constantly before competing on stage. Of course. Because it's lots and lots and lots of work for one chance. You get one chance, that's it. And I don't think it ever gets any easier. I like performing. I don't like competing. This was at the Mr. Pole Dance Australia, the only all-male pole dance competition in the world. And it's here in Australia.
Wow.
And you can be as outrageous, camp, and flamboyant. So you'll have one or two straight guys who compete, but the rest of them are all girlfriends being as camp as ever. It's great.
Thank you so much for coming on the Fierce. Shall we have a fairy gourmet hug?
Yes.
If we hug ourselves and
Yay!
then feel each other.
Death Star, the gates of heaven are always open. And he's describing the sky and the angels, how they sit, in front of the
Hi, this is Razor, currently in Fairyland, and you are listening to Fierce FM.
I don't know just how it happened. I let down my guard. Swore I'd never fall in love again, but I fell hard. Guess I should have seen it coming. Caught me by surprise. Wasn't looking where I was going. I fell into your eyes. You came into my crazy world like a cool and cleansing rain. Before I knew what hit me, baby, you were flowing through my veins. I'm addicted to you, hooked on your love like a powerful drug. I can't get enough of. Lost in your eyes, drowning in blue, out of control. What can I do? I'm addicted to you. Midnight blows in through the window, dances round the room. Got me hypnotized. I'm getting high on the perfume. I couldn't live without you now. I know I'd go insane. I wouldn't last one night alone, baby. I couldn't stand the pain. I'm addicted to you, hooked on your love like a powerful drug. I can't get enough of. Lost in your eyes, drowning in blue, out of control. What can I do? I'm addicted to you.
Thank you for listening to Fierce. This program celebrates the diversity of LGBTIQ identities and perspectives. Fierce is produced in Bundjalung Country at 2NCR Lismore and can also be heard on podcast at fiercefm.podbean.com and in New Zealand on Fresh FM, as well as all over Australia through the Community Radio Network.
Fierce FM on Spotify.